give us some suggestions on what you learned in your first year that we can improve on next year.
Okay, we appreciate you having me. I'm Ed Neely. I'm the director. And we've been separated now for 7 months. So we're a little over halfway through. And we have had quite an adventure. We're in the Woolfolk building temporarily. Of course, as you may or may not know, the Woolfolk building flooded.
Yes.
And the flood originated on our floor. So we've had 2 of our employees, they've been sharing one office, and then thank goodness it did not affect our fingerprint room. But my office, I have cardboard boxes on the floor to keep from tearing the tips off your shoes from the sticky carpet glue. So it's been a mess, but it's gone real well. We have learned a lot. We're getting to see, kind of with the expenditures where we are. And in my opinion, we're right on track. We want to request level funding. We're not asking for a budget increase. We feel like that, the amount that we have now is substantial, and we're going to be moving probably within the next month to our permanent location, which is the Robert E. Lee building. And that's come along real well. So we're really looking forward to being in the new office.
Would you bring that microphone around, speak into it, because we're on.
Yes, sir.
Asking this that way.
Okay.
YouTube TV can. Okay, that surprises me. I thought maybe kind of like the real estate commission, you'd probably be a little more accessible to your people. Do you have hearings that necessitate people to come downtown? It's so difficult to find places to park these days.
It really is. Really, the people that come to our office are primarily taking the state exam. Of course, with the Woolfolk building being closed to the general public, we've been really letting the applicant come in and take it in a little side room downstairs. And then we've had one service elevator is all we've had that worked for the whole building. But they've got another elevator working now, so it's much more enjoyable.
All right. Members of the subcommittee, they're on their own now. They're not under the Senator Polk. That was your bill, wasn't it? Yeah. Senator Polk, to get them out on their own from under the auspices of the Real Estate Commission. It worked great because when the Real Estate Commission was founded, they did not exist. Yes, Tracy.
My name's Tracy Wofford and I sit on the board. And with regard to your question about people coming downtown, technology makes it now where we have set up our office where we'll be able to have people come in via, Zoom or Teams or something like that. So maybe it will help with travel for our people who are licensures. That's just a thought.
Okay. Senator Polk, your bill has been very successful.
That's always good.
We have. We've thoroughly enjoyed it and appreciate all of your help with it.
You mean there are people that are happy with the legislature?
Well, and I think something else y'all need to know is the appraisers out in our state are really tickled with what we've been able to accomplish.
They are. They've really spoken well, and we're finding ways that we can improve daily. So I think it'll continue just to get better and better as time goes along.
Yeah, and I'd like to make a statement. One thing that I hope you didn't learn from the Real Estate Commission is they generated large amounts of surplus cash. And it's legislatures, we have the ability to sweep those funds if we have a tough time. And it happened when Senator Jack Gordon was chairman of Appropriations. So I would encourage you to keep your licensees in mind. Maybe if you start generating cash, reduce your fees. We're doing legislation this year for the Real Estate Commission to reduce some of the renewal fees just because they've generated so much cash, and it's the licensees feel like they've been paying too much into the system. What is your cash balance now?
We have right now, or are you saying overall that what we have in the state treasury?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We've got a little over $1 million.
That's a lot.
And we had thought about requesting an amended budget. Well, we really wanted to go for a solid year to get our expenses and find out, where we were. We did have a state vehicle. We no longer have that because it was parked in front of the MDOT building. Left it on a Friday and get a phone call Monday telling me that the car is parked on the other side of the sidewalk. I'm thinking, pardon me? Sure enough, somebody had, I guess, had come down the street, you know, kind of behind the Capitol, tried to cut real sharp, going too fast, hit the front tire, cracked the axle and broke the frame. So totaled the car while it was parked.
Lordy.
But we unfortunately did not have insurance. We had liability insurance or catastrophic insurance with the state. Why there was not insurance on it, I have no clue. But so the vehicle was a total loss. That was a vehicle, you know, that we brought over from the real estate commission. So,
Well, thank goodness you had liability insurance, because that's for your inspectors to go out. Is that what it's for?
yes, sir.
Yeah, we want to make sure liability insurance.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, do y'all have any questions
Any
or?
questions?
Questions come next year. You'll have had a
You got a year under your belt.
That's right. Well, we
We
do
will
thank
come
you.
Ready to support them.
Did you, have you replaced that vehicle with a liquid
No,
fund?
sir, we have not. We thought, like right now, like I said, with us just being 7 months into the process, we would really like to get through the year and see where all of our expenses are.
Right. Okay, well, thank you, Ed, for being so prudent. Tracy, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, sir, we really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have this memo. Can you tell me who's next, please? Audit. Okay.
Hello, how are you?
There's all.
Hey, where you want me?
Right on, stretch out there. Bring as many as you want with you and spread out. We've got plenty of room.
Sure. Everybody good?
Familiar faces.
One
Yeah.
familiar face down there, the one who grills me every time.
Folks, folks,
The game has changed. Gotcha.
are y'all all with audit department? You're welcome to sit right here if you'd like. Yes, sir. Please do. Hey, buddy.
What you doing?
Hey, what's going on, friend? Come on in.
Getting older.
I understand. Aren't we all?
The options are not very good though.
No, it beats the heck out of. Okay. Okay, all right, I guess, there we go, thank you. Hey, Auditor, I appreciate you being here today. I don't have a relationship with you like the previous group we had for 4 years, so, and this is subcommittees remain pretty. I know Senator Wiggins was on it last year. They may have had your agency, so anything, don't take anything for granted, please, that we might need to know,
Sure.
because we want to be brief, so we'll know what we can do to help you.
Sure. Well, top line point for us today is from the general fund, we're asking for level funding.
into
Oh,
that.
Sure.
Well, hear it on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. Top line for us today is from the general fund, we're asking for level funding plus the amount that would cover the pay increase for statewide elected officials. So that's how we got to that number right there. We're continuing to be very conservative with how we spend general fund dollars. We spend about 90% of our budget on people. We like hiring auditors. We like hiring investigators to go and watch your money to get the money back. So that's what we like investing in the auditor's office. We think we've done well at that over the course of the past 5 years. In the last 5 years since I've been in office, we've recovered about $70 million. That's more than any other 5-year period in the history of the auditor's office, as best we can tell from the records that we have. Typically, every year, my budget is just south of $9 million from the general fund, between 8 and 9. So we think we're a good investment of taxpayer funds, because we take that and then we go out and then we try to get your money back. So that's the big top line point for us. We are asking for a bit of an increase in our special fund authority, and that's money that we get from doing audits around the state. Main reason is we want to continue to recruit in the auditor's office so that we can add auditors. We can add investigators. We know that when we add auditors and add investigators, there's more eyeballs on money. It means we have a greater chance of getting dollars back at the end of the day. I'll be honest with you, our biggest challenge in doing that and recruiting is finding enough qualified people who can actually come and work at the auditor's office. So we're a highly technical office, and we can't just hire folks off the street and put them in there and train them. They have to have skills. They have to have a background in the stuff that we do. A lot of them have to have CPAs. So our biggest challenge is not necessarily the dollars. The biggest challenge is finding enough qualified people who will come and work in state government at the salaries that we pay compared to the salaries that they can earn in the private sector. So SEC squared has helped a lot with that. And we do think that that's made a big difference in our recruiting and retention plan, but we've just got to continue to work on my end to try to find talented people. The most creative thing that I think we've done to recruit and retain people is the Stay in the SIP program. And Chairman Polk and I have had extensive conversations about that over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. That's a program where we go to the universities and we identify students. And it's typically students who finish the first 2 years of their accounting degree. And we'll say, look, we'll pay for your third, fourth year of your accounting degree and your master's. But in exchange, it's kind of like the military. You have to come work at the auditor's office for a minimum of 2 years. And that number can go up. So if we pay for 2 years and 9 months of your education, you got to come work at the auditor's office for 2 years and 9 months. That's been our main recruiting mechanism that has helped us solve some of the recruiting challenge that we have. So our goal over time is to continue to build the capacity of the auditor's office, but do so by adding talent at the young end and then training them and hopefully retaining them through the course of a big part of their careers. So that's the big overarching view. Happy to answer questions.
You didn't steal the title of that Stay in the SIP from Coach Kiffin, did you?
I did. Yeah. I was shocked that he had not come up with the idea of using that website, but once we got it, then, we're off to the races after that.
Okay.
It's been a big success too. We've recruited 11 students over the course of the last 2.5 years. 5 have now come through the program. We paid for their education and they're full-time employees at the auditor's office. So it has really helped us solve our recruiting challenge. Before Stay in the SIP, we had a grand total of 0 people who had come straight from the universities into the auditor's office for the last 3 or 4 years prior to that.
Because I went to Ole Miss and we have great accounting schools at many of our universities, but I'm aware they have 100% job placement on their accounting.
That's correct.
Give us an idea of what the discrepancies are in what you're able to pay for an accountant out of a 4-year school versus what they're in the real world, their starting pay is.
It's a 54 on our end. I mean, for private sector pay, it's going up every day. So I'll tell you this, Mr. Chairman, I went to the Patterson School at Ole Miss. I spoke to about 200 seniors in the accounting school. So this is seniors in April of their senior year. So they all had jobs. So this gave me a good reference for where people are going because they've already got their jobs. And 100% of people in the room had a job, like you said. I asked them, how many of y'all are from Mississippi? About half the hands went up. Okay, not from Mississippi. About half the hands go up. I said, how many of y'all are leaving Mississippi for your first job? It felt like 100% of hands went up. I said, okay, just to be sure, how many are staying in Mississippi for your first accounting job? And it was small enough for me to count. It was 7 folks out of 200. So they are being offered a lot of money. And a lot of times that money is coming from Big 4 firms out of state. So we had to get creative. That's why we started Stay in the SIP, is to give them money now. What we found is that college students really respond to money right now. If they see the idea that they don't have to pay tuition today, then that's helpful. And we think cost effective.
Next question is for Corbin, I believe. Would best address this because it's going to come up in our budgets. How are we handling the increase in the health insurance? Are they requesting it, or is it just 5%?
Usually how they don't request it and we just calculate it and fund it.
It'll be in
on just how many employees they have.
Right. Okay. Because you've got a lot of employees and it went up about 5%. And
Got it. Yeah.
how many employees do you have?
We're at 129
It'll be
today.
a significant amount for y'all. So I want to make sure that's covered.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Committee members? Yes, sir. Senator Polk first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
I'm so glad to hear that the training program is working. That was the most exciting thing we talked about
Yes, sir.
last
No
year.
doubt.
It was good. So I'm glad to hear that's good. Previously you said y'all have recovered $70 million.
Correct.
Is that, I think you used the word collected maybe. Is that in the bank or is that money to eventually get into
That's
the bank?
in the bank, but
Okay.
it doesn't mean your bank. So that's one thing to point out is that, when I say we've recovered 70 million, if the money had been stolen from the city of Columbus, for example, their CFO was caught embezzling funds. If we get money back on that case, it goes back to the city of Columbus. So you won't see it in your general
But it's
fund.
not money waiting to be collected.
No, sir. It is collected back in a bank account.
Okay. Now, you cannot audit a city.
Correct. That's correct.
This may not be the place to talk about it, but as auditor, do you believe the state should have that authority?
The starting point that I would begin with is that our big cities above a certain revenue amount, our big cities do get audited. So they just don't get audited by the auditor's office because we are barred in statute from auditing municipalities. They get audited by private CPA firms. So people ask me, why in the city of Jackson getting audited? Well, it gets audited every year by a firm, Tan, Brown and Russ. And that audit is public and folks can read it on the internet. The question then is, okay, well, does the auditor's office want to take over some of those audits? And if so, are you open to a statutory change that would allow you to do that? Short answer is I'm open to any statutory changes that allow us to expand our footprint and be better watchdogs of taxpayer money. Yes. But I would just note that if that statute changes, it is going to, we can't just start auditing cities tomorrow. I mean, we're stretched at capacity already. So I would need, additional pins, additional dollars, and frankly, additional training time to bring new auditors in so that they could learn city audits and then they could launch that program. So even if we did all this statutory change, more money, more pins, it would take a while to get off the ground. Reason is very simple. Most county governments are very similar to one another. City governments differ dramatically. So, the city of Natchez has a charter that is, I don't know how old, but we would have to view that charter and audit them to that charter. Whereas, the city of South Haven is going to be a very different story. So auditing municipalities is not simple. It's not something you can flip a switch and just do. And they do get audited, but I am completely open to the idea that we would expand the authority of the auditor's office to catch some of those and to start doing that.
So my last question about the city audits, they do get behind, is that correct?
That's correct.
Several years.
That's correct.
Is there anything in our state law that could be used to prohibit that, to keep them up to date?
So usually what happens is if a city gets behind several years, the first thing that puts pressure on the city to get an audit done is the private sector, because the city will say, well, we want to go issue a bond and we want to go borrow some money to go fix the water system. And they'll go to the bank and the bank will say, no, you don't have an up-to-date audit, so no money. So that's usually what forces a city to go and get caught up on their audits. Federal government also does too. So, city of Laurel may go to the federal government and say, I want this grant to make Laurel a tree city. And the federal government's going to say, no, you don't have an up-to-date audit, no grant. Those are the two first mechanisms that usually kick in. There is a mechanism whereby, the state could go and start seizing tax dollars in order to force the city to do an audit. But that's a very rarely used procedure because it gets really nasty really quick. And then what you find a lot of times is the city's books are not in a condition to be audited. So it's not just hey, why hadn't you hired an auditor to do your audit? It's your books are in shambles. You need to hire somebody to go in and repair your books, make them accurate. And then after that, maybe then you can go hire an auditor to come in and see if those books are actually accurate.
Wiggins?
Thank you. Good to see you, Mr. Auditor.
Yes, sir.
Two questions. On your SIP program, I know you said they want the money now.
Right.
But my question is, what's the delta between, let me back up. I assume you're not paying what they're being offered by these other big four or whatever.
Correct.
So what's the delta that makes them decide to take that? Is it just that their student loans are being paid?
Yes.
Is it that, okay.
It's pretty simple. I think it's that I can stop paying tuition today. I can stop paying tuition today, and all I have to do is commit to going to work at the auditor's office. And so that dollar in the hand today is a powerful incentive, or has been, for our students. We look and, on average per student, we're talking about $35,000, $40,000 that we'll end up spending to get them through school. And then the payoff that we get at the end of it per year. And then the payoff that we end up getting at the end of it is we get a good employee.
Okay, so you're paying for their last 2 years of
Correct.
schooling.
Plus the master's.
Plus the masters. And they're willing to take that in lieu of less money or more money.
Right.
On that. Okay, so then have you done a study of like, hey, do they stay around after the 2 years, or do they stay in, or do they just go, hey, that's good, it's been paid off, so let's go somewhere?
We're a little bit too early to know. So we've only been doing the program for about 2.5 years. So we just now have our first crop of 5 students who have just started to work. So those 5 students have not reached the end of their commitment that they made to us. So I can come back probably in a couple of years and tell you, out of that first crop of 5, they hit their 2-year window, they're done with their required time. 3 stayed and two left, or whatever it may be. We're hoping they'll stay. I mean, we hope that they settle in here and buy a house and get married and,
Right.
and don't move.
Other question. So y'all are one part, you're the first part of this process. The second part is prosecuting folks.
Well, investigating. Yes, sir.
Now, I know you investigate, but the prosecution is left up to the local DAs and so forth.
Yes, sir. You're right.
How, I guess this is a general question. I mean, how does that go in general?
It depends on the DA. So we have 3 sets of prosecutors that we can work with on any given case: the local DA, the Attorney General's office, or the federal prosecutors. And we worked with all 3 kinds of offices over the course of my 5 years in office. Our success rate in getting a DA to take a case and then take the case all the way through the process has varied dramatically based on the local DA. So to be blunt, there are some DAs out there that we just cannot get interested in our cases. And there are some DAs who act like they're waiting at the door for us when we get there. I mean, they're ready to take embezzlement cases. They're ready to take fraud cases. The federal, not investigators, the federal prosecutors have been pretty open in the past to taking our cases. Disadvantage to federal prosecutors, and they would probably tell you this themselves, is they're methodical and they're they're slower than a lot of the local DAs. So we're careful about which cases we take to them. We want to make sure that it's a case that is worth their time, usually a pretty complex case, and a case that, we're comfortable with them spending the time and digging into it. So in general, pretty good. That's how I would say it.
So you vet before you take them and ask for prosecution.
Correct. So our process is, tip comes in, Bill brings a tip in and he says, I've seen this person stealing this money. We have lawyers receiving that tip, and they're going to listen to the tip and they're going to say, is there any way this could be a fraud case? If Bill comes in and he says, my local high school just astroturfed the baseball field and I'm mad about it, that's not a fraud case. So our lawyer at the front end is going to say, thank you for the information, that's not a fraud case. But if the lawyer on the front end in my office says, yes, there is potential fraud, any potential for fraud, we then assign it to an investigator, go through that whole process. And then at the end of it, we have seasoned investigators and a senior attorney who look at it and will say, yeah, I think we have proven this beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's go to the DA. And I'm an attorney as well. So I'll look at it at that point and say, yes, I'm comfortable with this office taking that to the DA. Let's go.
And last question, Mr. Chairman. So on these areas that are reluctant to take the cases, what are the barriers to that? And then does it make sense that you have another avenue statewide? I don't know, state grand jury, for instance.
Yep.
To do that. Okay. It's interestingly, the State Grand Jury Act is up for renewal this year.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
So is that, what's your thoughts on that? I see him, his eyes are very bright. Oh, you have?
We
Okay.
talked about this probably three or 4 years ago. Short answer is if a local DA says no, it can be for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's their cousin. Maybe they just don't want to do it. Maybe they just don't want to do cases, period. If that happens, usually what we do is go to the AG's office and say, we think this is a good case. We would like you to take this case. But of course, there are times when everybody sort of looks at it and there's no appetite for the case and we still feel strongly about it. So 2 or 3 years ago, we talked about changing or asking for a change in the statewide grand jury statutes to allow us to do white collar fraud cases involving public funds inside the state grand jury. I'm going from memory at this point. My recollection was that there was a constitutional issue which maybe needed to be solved. And I want to say maybe there was a provision in the Constitution that made some reference to statewide grand juries and drugs. And
Sorry, that's in the actual statute.
Oh,
which
good.
has always been kind of interesting to me. From sorry, Mr. Chairman, I know this isn't a Jud A committee, but that's always been interesting to me that that's the limitation on it. It's a statutory thing as opposed to a constitutional thing.
if, assuming that that's not a limitation, that all we would need is to change the statute to add white collar crime involving public funds, I'm for it. I would absolutely welcome that.
And what would that aid you in doing?
So basically, if a local DA and the AG's office declined to take a case, then, we would take the case ourselves to statewide grand jury, find a prosecutor somewhere else in some other jurisdiction and let them have the case.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'd have to, it's either the AG or somebody would have to be the prosecutor on it. So,
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess depending on how the statute's worded,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
okay, thank you.
sure.
Turner Ford has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that there are 16 pins that you're requesting to be
Yes, ma'am.
restored. Can you classify them? What types of positions are these?
That's a
And
good
what
question.
impact do they have on your operation?
Randy or Bill may know more about the 16.
Basically, they're entry level positions.
And then some of the positions are mid-level managers. It's kind of hard sometimes to get those middle managers in the Delta areas where they need them. So some of those positions are ones that we are heavily recruiting to try to find in the Delta area in North Mississippi, middle managers to handle county audits as well.
Folks tend to think of us as being all here, but because we audit all the counties, we have to have auditors. It is more convenient and cost effective to have auditors out in the rest of the state.
How long has the agency operated without these 16 pins that were taken?
Well, since I've been in office, we've never been up to that number. Our goal is to get up to this number just to be able to do the work that we think we need to do. I would say this too. I mean, part of adding those pins back in is really to be able to afford the people that we have right now and the few folks that we think will recruit, because those dollars would go to pay them. So it's part of it is giving us the flexibility just to continue to recruit.
One other thing, Senator Turner Ford, those 16 vacancies, we use a PIN number for the SIP people. We know they're coming on board.
Yep.
That's why we need to keep them, because 5 of them are already queued on that 16. So if we lose that, then we don't have a full-time thing to put them in.
Yep.
Plus, we have an opportunity to get 2 more SIPs this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. White, thank you so much.
Thank you
Here
all.
with us today, and
Yeah.
everybody else.
Call us
Y'all
anytime.
did a great job too.
Thank you.
You're great. A plus. I've known you longer than any of them though.
We won't bring on.
Yeah, you got him. You got your face man up there for that.
Just ran into Logan Reeves up there, was asking if he was good. Has he ever shown you this cheerleader video from Boy State? Lieutenant Governor, when we were Southern, that's how his campaign video that we played before the debate. He got a bunch of found some of the US, or no, some of the cheerleaders that were there for the camps that week. He got them to record a video. You are, sir. He was like, he was old.
Let me know when you get it. Take 215. Good to see you, bud. See you still around. Well, yeah. I told you that when we interested. Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
I'll bring all that.
Thank y'all. Appreciate your time. Thank y'all.
Walter has.
Good seeing you today.
I called you yet about a donation for the forestry building.
Have I missed all the meetings?
I'll tell her to take your name. My wife's Elena. Yeah. We're building a new building.
I didn't know that.
You going out Lakeland,
Okay, out there.
you take a left,
Down in some of that.
down in,
I
yeah.
heard it been donated by, who was the timber, there's a timber group that donated that to them.
I don't know, but it's part of the wildlife.
Good, okay,
Land out there.
beautiful.
We'd love to have her. I think Malthus has kicked in.
They ought not have any problem. They should just get the materials donated from all these lumber guys.
That's what
They
I
could
thought.
build the whole thing with donations.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Anything
I'm a
we can
member
help-
though, you know.
Yeah.
We've got a hearing, I hope she'll be there on the 7th Forestry Committee, about the drought and the pine beetles that have devastated Mississippi.
Oh, man. what you
Um,
got?
If you'll ask her, if you can't
We
remember.
had a friend, she lives in Madison. She had pine beetles, 5-acre lot. She was charged $76,000 to come in.
Move. That's happening all over.
No value.
Our Miss MDOT and Natchez Trace Parkway, no telling what they're gonna spend.
The stress just,
And some of these municipalities have got these dead trees right next to major power lines.
yeah.
That's where the problem lies. They got to go do it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Mr. Subcommittee Chairman. The real chairman. Yeah, we were talking, good. I'm gonna dress down. Watson coming next.
Who else?
Appraisal.
Appraisals.
We got, and the big one's the DOR, and if we're running early, if somebody would let him know, we may be a little early.
What time?
You can watch it on YouTube, or listen to it
No,
on the way home tonight.
How long do you plan on being here?
See, let me see who's before them. We got, tax appeals. They don't take long at all. They always ask for one, lawyer. That's what we do every year. We listen to it. And workers' comp. And then at 3 and the DOR at 3:30. I wish somebody tell DOR to make sure they're here by about 3, because I think we'll be ready for them. Could you ask Christie to maybe tell them that? DOR that we're running a little early? It won't take 30 minutes. Michael Watson, will we? Thank you.
Both look so excited down there.
Nice to have him.
Yeah, I was trying to call all the other people.
Thank you, if you would.
Good. How about you?
Running, but I'm good.
Gotta know what these mics are. Yeah, they're not. None of them really answer.
You want me to use this?
Okay. Senator Secretary, thank you for being with us today. We've had different subcommittees these 4 years than we had the last 4, and I've never had the pleasure of handling y'all's budget. So maybe a few of these have worked with you in the past. So if you'll kind of start from ground zero, don't assume this subcommittee knows everything about your agency. We'd appreciate it.
I will. Thank you. Always good to be back with my friends, my colleagues. I appreciate your kindness to me years and years ago when I came into the Senate. Always been a friend. So thank you for having us today. I'll tell you really quickly, one of the things that sometimes folks don't realize you have a lot of questions about. From time to time, I'll be in a general public and people ask, well, what is it exactly that you do? Y'all probably know that, but it's really good, kind of a refresher. Basically a quick elevator speech. We've got 3 areas where we typically spend most of our time. Elections, basically the office, but really doesn't take up as much time as the second piece, business services. So your LLCs, your nonprofits, corporations, scrap metal dealers, perpetual care cemeteries. I could keep going, but you get the picture. All the business services kind of run through our office there with the regulatory body, the APA. And then lastly, public lands. So y'all may not remember, but did away with the public lands commissioner and put that under the Secretary of State's office. So we have public lands as well. 16th section lands, tidelands along the coast, obviously very important to the coast, and then tax forfeited properties. So that's really a quick overview of what we do. I will tell you one of the things that I'm very proud of when I look at our agency, and no secret to y'all, very conservative minded individual. But when I look at our agency, it does make me proud to know that we completely use the funding that's given to us justly and rightly so. We've got a really hardworking group. A couple of the points that we'll walk through here just to really kind of give you a flavor of some of the things that we're doing. Number one, you'll see there in your notes, we registered or helped register over 60,000 new voters last year, north of 266,000 since 2020. With that, we partner with our election commissioners, our circuit clerks, groups around the state to help them get voters registered. We talk in schools, we go to football games, we go all over the place to make sure that we're getting people educated on the process and making sure they understand how easy it is to vote. And part of that is the registration piece. And so we're really proud of that. The second one there about elections, we launched the My Election Day and Elections 101. The 101 has been a successful program for us to really educate folks on voting. What does it look like from the time that I register to vote to the time that my vote is counted? How does that process work? So y'all see a lot more of that this year because 2024, you'll see a big focus on elections this year. But that's been really helpful to educate Mississippians on the process. If we feel like, you know what, I understand this is easy, then hopefully they'll be more engaged to participate. The second piece of that is My Election Day. A very easy link on our website where you can go see all of your locally elected officials. You can see where you go vote. You can see a sample ballot. Again, driving home the point of making sure it's easy for folks to vote in Mississippi and understand what they need when they go to the polls. So that's been a smashing success. Our 82 county tour. I went to all 82 counties for the last 4 years, sat down with our circuit clerks and our 410 election commissioners and basically talked to them about how do we build a team that can be successful with elections in Mississippi. So we don't just talk about doing it. And I want to drive that point home to y'all. We actually do the work. I remember being in the legislature and sometimes I would think about, sometimes we have a little different view of state agencies and the work that they do or work that they don't do. And so I want you to understand.
Now you're on the other side of the equation.
That's
I
right.
understand. I know that
That's
works.
right. Yeah. But I appreciate that. And I want y'all to know how kind of we view it from the legislative perspective, but then being in an agency, and I can come over here with a straight face and tell you, we earn the money that you send us. We work hard. You will see there below 33 million, just north of the 33 million that we put into the treasury last year. So it's not something that we're just saying, hey, give me. We're providing back to the state and taking a lot less than we provide to the state to do a really good job. A couple more things I really wanted to point out. The 53,000, north of 53,000 new businesses in 2023 here in Mississippi that we registered. Great number. We've seen an average of probably 57,000 the last 4 years, new businesses every year. Now you've got to think about some of the ones that fall off. So that number's a little bit lower when it comes to the net, but really good business growth. And one of the things we've done there is a welcome to business webinar. So when new businesses register in Mississippi, they get a link to come to our Welcome to Business webinar. We talk to them about their annual reports. We talk to them about DOR. We've got an MDA involved with this. What are the things that I need to know from the state government side that I need to be in compliance with? And what are the resources out there that I can use to help grow my business? So again, it's not just what it used to be. All of us who have filed an LLC, you file your paperwork and you're done. Well, no, we're going to try to help you understand what it is that you need to do to keep your business afloat and give you some resources to be successful there as well. 29 by 29, I'll talk to you about that. Going through the 29 boards and commissions under the OLRC. We went through our first three and found roughly 1,700 regulations in those first three. North of 500 of those regulations basically were pulled out of thin air. So one of the things that we look at is there some kind of federal law backing this, a state law, the kind of reg, and what we found here, again, north of 500 of them were discretionary. So you're going to see that, I know the state economist mentioned this in his meeting, I think last week, how Tackle the Tape and the 29 by 29 initiative, cutting that regulatory burden, making sure that Mississippians have an easy path to starting their business and being successful is one of the things that we've really focused on. So I wanted to mention that as well. We won the Ideas Award last year, the National Association of Secretaries of State for Tackle the Tape, which is the most innovative program that they've seen across the country. So it's not just Mississippi, but the country is noticing this. And we've had secretaries from around the country asking us, how do we implement this in our state? So again, ambassador program, we had 56 high school seniors last year, 67 this year. We teach them three things. And this is the cream of the crop in Mississippi. We talk about John's grandson, excuse me, Senator Polk's grandson. So we bring them in, we teach them about elections, how do elections work. They do a voter registration drives in their schools. Number two, we teach them how state government works. If you something that you want to advocate on behalf of, where do you even start? How does this work? And then lastly, it's a mentorship program. So we introduce them to Chevron, to Ergon, to Entergy, to these companies in Mississippi where they know, you know what, I don't have to leave to have a great career. I can have it right here. We bring those folks in to give them presentations. They do 2 in-persons here in Jackson. And then last year we added another level to that. So 1 in person in North Mississippi, 1 in person in South Mississippi. So we have 4 in-person meetings. And then we have every month we have speakers from Trent Lott, Cindy Hyde Smith, you name it, a lot of really successful people that have come through and talked to them. So I say this to say, we're not sitting on our hands over there. We are working hard. And so when I have some of these requests here, I want you to understand they are measured requests that I can show you proof that we're actually doing the hard work there. Lastly, MBAT summits. Y'all may remember we launched our MBAT program, Mississippi Businesses Against Trafficking, to help combat human trafficking. We now have over 168 members, and we have had summits where we're training north of 500 folks on how to really assess what does human trafficking look like? How do I define this? How do I understand it? And what are the key things that I can look for as I'm going through the gas station, Mississippi Braves game, the mall, whatever it is? How do I recognize it? And then to whom do I report that? So it's been really helpful as well. Now, that's just a really small flavor of what we're doing here. And I want you to understand, again, I'm proud of the work that we do. North of about 100 folks, and they all work hard. We were just talking this morning in a staff meeting, and one of our CSRs, who is basically the figurative face of the office. Folks call our office every day, answered over 100 calls yesterday. And just imagine you on your cell phone having to take 100 calls and explaining, hey, where do I go to file my taxes? Or what do I do this? Or how do I do this at Secretary of State's office? And they do it with a smile. These are really good folks. I challenge you to call them and see how you're treated. And if you're treated poorly, obviously I want to know, but you won't be. So I think that's a really good face for the state as well. And we tell them, you may be the only call. You may be the only interaction somebody ever has with state government. Make it a good one. Put a good face on the state. And so I just encourage y'all to maybe do a little investigative shopping there, maybe call them up. Request wise, you'll see them noted here. I will highlight a few of them. You'll see last year we got 1.5 million for our lands managed maintenance fund. We also got a number for voter roll maintenance piece that put us a little bit underwater. The request wasn't fulfilled as much as we thought it would be. So we'll be pointing some of that out as we go through our budget. The big one here that I really want to talk about is the increase to our salaries. Y'all well know SEC squared was implemented. I appreciate the better salaries for the people in our office. And I can, again, say with a straight face, I would pay probably 99.9% of them as much as I could. They bust their tails, really, really good workers. We've got a couple of additional pieces here that we're going to ask for an increase in the salaries. Y'all saw the estimates here and the actual. And I want you to understand something. When we turn money back with its salaries, I think the number was 6-something last year, 600-something thousand. As a legislator, I'd see that number and say, well, then you don't need more money. That's not that easy. When we have this target number, and that's what they use, you have a target number. And as long as you don't go over your target number per month, you're okay. Well, the problem with that is I'll get to month 4 and I didn't hit my target and I was 50,000 short month 1, month 2, month 3, but I had 5 pins out here that I hadn't been able to fill. Great example. We're picking up 4 people this month. That target number is going to change, but this $50,000 that I didn't use these first 4 months, it looks like that I didn't need that $200,000, but I do. So when you see that, I want you to understand the way that that works. And again, as legislators, I remember looking at that number and saying, oh gosh, no, they don't need that money. It's not that easy. So I want y'all to kind of think through that. So we asked for about 180,000 increase in our salaries there. 2 of those will be for, y'all know, the foreign owned lands piece that's kind of working its way through the legislature. We're going to need some more work in our public lands division to help staff that. So 2 of those are in that 178, as well as 1 other that we're about to hire as well. So I throw a lot at you, but I want you to understand that salary piece especially, it really isn't as simple as it looks when you think about the target number and how this thing works across the board. I would love to give raises to my folks. We don't have the money, but that's a story for another day. A couple of other quick things. Broadwater Marina Restoration Project, obviously specifically to the coast there. We put in for some funds with DMR, obviously some Tidelands funds. We got some of our other GMESA and Restore Act dollars, and somebody had to support the project, so they put that through us. So one of these numbers that you're going to see, it's a big number. That's not money that we get. That's money that goes to that project. We're basically a flow through for that. So you'll see we're asking for some more authority because we, as a flow through and overseeing the project, the money doesn't come to us. We basically get the money from DFA, spend it, and have to get DMR to send us money back on the back end from GMESA or from Tidelands, whatever that number is. So you're going to see some authority requests for that. The other thing is for a supplemental appropriation, we've got 3.977 for STAR. As y'all will know, business services is a big piece of our office. The system we're on is roughly 20 years old and it's about to crash. Matter of fact, our vendor has told us we will not be servicing that anymore in a couple of years to come. So find something different. So we don't have a choice. That's going to be a big number there. We also asked for a reapproach of some of our funding from last year that we turned back. And I say that in air quotes, 410,000, and that's for the Blue Book and that's some IT upgrades. So this is a year that a Blue Book will be printed. I'll sign your copy if you want. And I think that's a lot of talk. Really quickly there to let y'all know kind of what we're doing, but also I don't come over here with my hand out asking for money that I can just go play tiddlywinks with. I want you to understand our people work hard and y'all are getting a great value from our office. I think it's important for y'all to know that. And again, y'all know me from serving with me, my conservative nature and spending taxpayer dollars and spending them wisely. I would not ask you for them if we didn't spend those wisely and you got your bang for your buck. So with that, I will be quiet. I don't know if my team wants to add anything to that. Any questions that y'all may think of or have, I'm happy to address them.
Dr. Wiggins.
Thank you. On the contractual services, I've noticed there's a big jump. And so my question is, and even from 2020, I'm sorry, from 24 to FY25 requests from 6 million to 11 million. What's the reason for that?
Yes, you're good.
Most of that is part of the Broadwater, the grant program.
So again, we have to sign contracts with the engineer and the contractors, whoever it may be. So we've got to have that authority for that money to flow back through us when we ask for from DMR, from Titans, or from DMR, from GMESA or DFA. So that's why we're having that increase in the ability there.
So that's basically a one-time for this one project.
Yes, and it's really not an appropriation. It's more authority than it is.
Okay. Well, that brings me to my next question, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I want to make sure, is this not going, hope it's not going to end up another floor fight among the coast legislators like the
Well, I'm
Creel,
trying to get to it
the
now.
Creel limit of the speckled trout that we had a few years ago.
No, not asking for those speckled trout.
Okay, all right, Senator Williams.
Lowering.
In all fairness, Secretary of State Watson was not in the legislature at that time.
Okay.
I was catching speckled trout.
That's
Yes, sir.
which, yes, seeing your thing, that was, the project was funded in 23. And then I noticed over here, it said a supplemental appropriation. Is that from Go Mesa
So there's
or?
basically two things there with supplementals. One is the STARS system, the hardware, the system in itself, software. The other one was for the authority to spend that money because we were getting trapped and we were having to come up with the money ourselves because we didn't have the authority. So we would pay it out of our general fund and they go get the money back. So that's
So it's authority.
correct.
Our
Okay.
agency is fronting that money
Right.
now, and then getting reimbursed.
From the Go Mesa stuff and Restore and all of that. Great. Thank you.
So those are federal dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, Senator Polk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I see you are going to get a new IT system. That's not expensive, 160,000 in this day and time. But my question is this: how are y'all incorporating the use of our ITS department in Mississippi to help y'all with that project? And the answer may be no, which is interesting.
So a couple of things on that, and you are my friends and they're my friends, and I don't want to make my friends mad, but that 160 number in there was for some upgrades and some hardware and software to our system now. STAR piece and moving over elections to the cloud and some other things that we're doing, we did have to go through ITS. The procurement process with ITS is awful. Matter of fact, we just got a heads up back today, and I'm not throwing ITS under the bus. This is just the way the thing works. So David and his team are good people. So I don't want y'all to take that from this. But we had basically, when you send over an RFP or your parameters for your project, they then send it out to a third party who assesses that project and looks at it and helps them kind of get some parameters there and some pricing issues. They then send it back to ITS. Well, we requested one for our elections system that we have to have by November. I mean, this is legit. I have to have because of the presidential. We just got word today, and this is 2 or 3 months ongoing now, 4 months ongoing now that, oh, by the way, the third-party vendor sent it back to us for some questions for clarification before we allow them to look at the package. 4 months, and we still know nothing. So I hope y'all may take a hard look at that process. It is cumbersome. It is costs, delays, you name it. It's not good. So if we need to sit down and talk through some details, we will, but we do try to work through them, and it's just hard.
You have to work also with the Public Procurement Board, correct?
We do.
What's the difference?
So I think the way that's set up with ITS specifically, like I was saying here, they've got project managers. So first you send over and assign an interior project manager in ITS. That project manager then has to send it out to a third party group. I can't remember, Civics, to go through the procurement, the RFP, the parameters, the design, you name it. And comes back and says, all right, this is good. This is maybe a ballpark number, or go back to them, and then we'll green light it, and then you can put it out for the RFP, like to go through the process and then buy your stuff. So just the way that it works like that with SPB, is that what you're asking about, SPB? Or yes, we get to the board meeting, we explain to them, and there's a vote. It's a lot easier. So I understand wanting to save dollars to make sure that people are looking at this and this project works and it's worth funding, and I get all that, but it just seems like there's a lot more to it when we have to go through ITS than there should be. And we're in the middle of one right now. 4 months are wasted. I've got to have this by November, period. So it's going to put us in a big jam.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Corbin?
Could y'all explain I guess the funding this spanning over 2 years. So you're gonna need, I guess, a deficit appropriation this year and then the sustain portion of that for that grant. Can you kind of explain that to them?
I'm sorry. The agency usually doesn't budget for, when they're doing their budget requests, they don't normally put, the federal amounts in there because you can escalate it usually. This is different because we are not the direct recipients from the federal agency. We're subrecipients of Department of Marine Resources and DEQ. So we were not allowed to escalate the budget to be able to handle these grant expenses. So technically, it probably should have been in the request last year, but it wasn't. So we had to ask for this supplemental to go in so we would have the authority to pay the expenses for the grant for this year.
So long story short, a technicality that we had never dealt with before. Now we're back saying, oh, by the way, this is how this works.
It's an $8 million project that's going to span over 2 years. So I did include what we would need for 25 in our 25 request, but we just need that 3.6 for this year.
For y'all heads up, that's about to go out to bid, the construction piece of it pretty soon. So we'll see some dirt turning down the coast, and it's going to be really exciting for the coast to see something actually happen on that.
Y'all tell the committee a little bit about y'all's current building and where y'all are moving to, the relocation process and how that's all going.
I smooth forgot that. So when we came in, we had a lease down in Biloxi. It was about 40,000-ish. And I knew that we had the DMR Bolton building over there. And if we could get in that space and find an office over there, then we could save 40,000 off the top. We did that very quickly. Started looking here in the 660 building, which is on North State Street.
Where Gaming Commission is?
Next to Gaming Commission, correct. So we located that space, was going to work perfectly, got the design work done, and then the funding piece came after that. The problem was DFA had to get some swing space to take people out of 660 so they could then get the work and construction going. They're almost done with that. They had to get funding for Veterans War Memorial to redo it, to put somebody in there. Long story short, we're paying about $437,000 right now a year for our 2 floors and cap towers down the street. We take them to 660. Clearly, that takes off that rental amount that we're going to have to need. So when I can save money, I'm going to save money. So that is a big deal. So for the DFA piece funding, I hope that y'all will look kindly upon them as well to get that funding finished up. We've been told about conservatively 18 months is kind of the number right now. So if we can get in there and move over, you'll see some dollars in there for our move. But obviously, we'll make that up really quickly when that $437,000 doesn't have to go out.
But you're still in the Bolton building.
We are. So
I know you are, but
Yes.
that's the.
Yes.
But you're shrinking that? Didn't you
No.
already do?
We shredded that 40,000 contract from Gulfport and the office we were in, moved to Bolton. So they're staying there.
okay.
This is cap towers.
Right. Okay.
Past Governor's Mansion. And it will come to 660 right up here on North Street. So we'll save 437 a year.
You said you're moving 2 floors. Is that the whole operations or part of it?
It's probably 80% of us, 70% of
You'll
us.
keep a small office there?
Mhm.
All right, I have a question on operations more so than anything. When Secretary Hostman was there before you, we had a problem with LLC, limited liability companies, and people not renewing them, and thousands of them that were abandoned. And now it's a bit laborious process to have to renew those every year. Would you think it's smart to be able to allow 3-year renewals or 5-year renewals? And my other part of that question is, when someone fails to renew theirs, does that name of that LLC go into a dormant area where someone else can't get it? Because it could be a mess I could see on title on property if someone grabbed that same LLC and all of a sudden they claim ownership. I never understood how that would work.
I'll answer that one first. It is reserved. I can't remember the time that we do it, but it is reserved for a bit for them to come back. Two or three pieces there we can walk through. Number one, we've tried to get that now to electronic notice. We had some issues last year where some of the, I think it was maybe Judd A or probes, were concerned that what if people don't get their letters or don't check their email?
Emails, yeah.
Then they can get the letter. But the year before that, we put in there that they have to provide us with an email address to try to make it easier. We spend $60,000 a year on postage for LLC updates. And we're trying to get that number down via email. It's a pretty easy process. One thing I would suggest to you, again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but I was asked a question from a lady from Alabama. She asked how we did it. And she said, look, well, over there, their tax commission basically sends out an extra box when you do your taxes or your LLC annual report. And you just check off the information. It then flows to the SOS office. So you don't even have to go to the SOS office to do it. You do it right there on your taxes. I went to the DOR and asked them. They said our systems don't talk. And I said, I don't know that that's true, but.
And
So there are some
many single
solutions
member
we can-
LLCs don't file a separate tax return. They're tied to a social security number. That would be a
That's right.
problem with that as well.
A little issue.
I get your emails are very good. My answer to your question about someone fails to do it, buyer beware. It's their obligation to know you're providing an email. If they don't get the email, it's still their fault if they don't remember. But what about the point of renewing for 3 years at a time where would it be?
Necessarily mind that. Again, the whole purpose is to clean it up,
Yes, sir.
to make sure we know who's out there. So if that's the will and pleasure of the legislature to address that, but that doesn't offend me. Yeah. What else? Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, you got a question for the senator, senator secretary?
I forgot one other thing since he's here.
No, but you missed, Mr. Chairman, that his first thing out of his mouth was, it's different being an agency head than when you're in the legislature. Said, funny how that happens.
I will tell you, the benefit from being a legislator going into an agency is incredible. Very, very helpful. There is one other piece that it's not in here, but one thing we have been talking about, there's a company called Fortinet you may have heard of. I know the chairman is aware of them. We've got an issue with our cybersecurity at the local level. When I would go around with our 82 county tour, there would be some circuit clerks that say, I'd ask them about their IT and they'll say, yeah, so-and-so from Grenada County comes down once every month and checks on it. That's not good. So we've got some things that we're working on, much like we did with our voting machine equipment, where the contract comes to the Secretary of State's office to get a better rate. We may do that with Fortinet to get a better handle on our county level security. They could contract through us to get a better rate. So that may be coming. I know we've talked a little bit about it and the chairman's aware, but that's the only other thing I can think of that may be out there, absent what we've left you in our notes here. Quick heads up there. What else?
I believe we've got the Board of Tax Appeals waiting to come in. Do you have anything else? Any other questions?
They're good people too.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank y'all so much for all of you being here. Thank you, Senator. Hey. The other one. Thank you. Oh, there, Krista, for you. Welcome back, Will Green. Yes, we're ready. Have to sit right all along there, please. Oh, do we want to jump them ahead of somebody?
No.
Okay. Right, yeah. Okay, we need to move quickly. We've got Department of Revenue and they usually take quite a bit of time. So we thank Board of Tax Appeals for being here today. That'd be great with it in hand.
Well, I think that I may know all of you, but in case you do not know me, I am Krista Andy. This is Will Green Poindexter. He's one of our members. So, I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can. I know y'all are in a hurry, and I appreciate very much you giving us the time to come before you. I think most of you know who we are, so I'm not going to spend time on that. That's in the summary of our handout. If you need a little. And the main reason I think we're that for initial budget and that so just as a refresher, we got some fluctuation that if we needed to move money out but as a member, December after we put in our budget. So now, so now we're trying to do that on the 20th. So,
Chris, turn your microphone on, please. We're on YouTube, so anybody that speaks, please speak into a microphone. Yes, thank you. Yeah. No, it's still red. You got to turn it on where it's screen. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Green means go, right?
Yes.
So on our handout at the back on that, here's the schedule. I think y'all love to see the numbers. I like that too. So, taking from the base of, I keep wanting to call it the recommendation. But they had originally given us the 540 that we requested or recommended that for us, what we requested. Well, now that we have got one of our attorneys now putting in 80% on the salary line, we have requested to cover now her increase there. We would need an additional 560. However, that base also included a 3% progression for salaries. So if that were, also allowed for this too, that would be the 575. So that's where the 540 to 575 comes in. And then to then reflect that our contract worker is now going to be working less. She's not gonna be doing the 50%, but she's going to do 20, then that's where the contract line, we've reduced that. So from, it's gone down to the 66,855. So that is the bulk or the main reason that we're here, is to kind of make those adjustments in those two line items based on our contract worker and salaried attorney. We also did request for that, which was in our original. Those are the only things that are different from our original request. The other is that was in our original request was the 4,000 increase for equipment. We didn't have anything allocated for that this year, and so we've asked for that. So I guess I'm trying to make this quick, and I hope that I didn't make it confusing, but I can answer any questions. But I guess on that snapshot of what's on the back, and basically those first two, I think these first three columns, if I'm not mistaken, are, reflective of the legislative budget. It's not called recommendation anymore. Is it the base? I'm sorry. Base. Okay. But that is basically, this is trying to reflect that, but then that last column now is our updated request based on this, change in hours that our contractor or our attorneys are going to be putting in. So Denise, did I leave anything out?
Now, I would just say,
Yes.
I know it's not something you would consider, but it would be really nice if we didn't have a salary target in this agency and we were fully lump sum, then we wouldn't have to come back for these kind of issues. This agency is very much a professional agency, all of the staff. And when you have 3 board members that are actually sitting in a headcount position, it makes it very unique. And then when you have these attorneys are outside the salary setting authority of the State Personnel Board. So it would make more sense if we didn't have to have a salary target. And Krista didn't know I was going to say that.
Well, and I think too, and y'all just say, cut off, we got to go, because I'm fine with that. But the 2 attorneys that we do have, which I have said this before, so I know that, I guess most of you only see once a year, which that's probably a good thing unless it's just out socially. But both of those attorneys are exceptional. I mean, we are a small, unique agency, but we are specialized. And so, we hear appeals from the Department of Revenue. And so we're not part of the Department of Revenue. We're separate and apart. But I do feel like that, y'all created our board, and now I feel like it's not really a new board anymore. I still want to say it's a new board, but it's not really. But I feel like that what you did in creating our board was excellent. And I do feel like that the members of our board that are serving now, I mean, their education, their expertise, their fairness, their attention to detail, which, tracks down through our executive director, our attorneys that are sharing that full-time position, as well as our hearing officer. We've got an excellent group of people. And so I am proud of that. I feel like that both the department and the, taxpayers and their representatives that come before us, I think that I think we have respect from them. I think that we have great relationships with them. And I think it's because, even though everyone knows, if you come to a hearing and people are not in agreement, somebody's not going to leave as happy as the other person when our order comes out. However, we do try to hear the parties and what they say. We try to consider, which we of course have to, that's our duty, but consider the law and apply it. And we not only try to tell them what we're doing, but we try to tell them why we did what we did. And so that they feel like they may not like it, but hopefully they'll understand it and think it's fair. And if they do want to appeal, then they have a reason, at least from our perspective, of why it didn't go their way, and maybe they can adjust that way. So we are striving to, and I think we are continuing to do a good job for the public that we serve, which we know that's our duty. And we want to keep our good people. There was a time when, I know some of you can remember me coming before us, and even Corbin working with us really closely at that point. but we didn't even have the funds to really hire people that we needed to get the job done. And y'all have listened to me over the years, and you have been exceptional in assisting us with getting us to the point where we can hire good people and we can actually afford our Post-it notes and our legal paper. And we are thrilled about that because we're proud of our agency. We want to continue to do the work that we're doing, but we want to do it well because you're only as great, and can serve as great as your people are. And right now we have great people, so I don't want to lose them. So. Any questions?
Representative Poindexter.
I want to say one thing. I don't know how long I've been on this thing, but I've been on it a long time. And we spent about 3 to 4 years hiring a lawyer and losing them until you have to work. And we could never get anything done. And these ladies have improved that situation greatly. And I greatly thank y'all for allowing us to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all so much. Good to see you another year, Krista.
Yes, always.
Bill Green, always good to see a former House member.
Absolutely.
Well, this is about the closest I ever came to the Senate.
That's right.
Okay.
But I met a lot of them.
There are a few good ones. Yes, sir.
Rita will be
will be thrilled that my beard is being broadcast on YouTube.
Right.
She hates it.
Okay, we have before us the Mississippi Workers' Compensation Commission, and we thank all three commissioners for being here today. I'd like an update on how many years left on each of your terms. You just got reappointed last year, was it?
Oh, actually.
I have just been
We took
reappointed
care of you last year. I remember
another
that.
6-year term.
6, and you got how many left, Mark?
This is my last year.
Year?
And I have 4.
4 left, okay. Great, well, we've loved working with you.
Well, we've enjoyed working with you. Would you like us to begin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've already recognized the fact that both Commissioner Harkins and Commissioner Henry are here with us, and obviously Ray Minor is our executive director. I'm gonna let him do most of the presentation, mainly because he does most of the work in getting it ready, and it's only fair to let him espouse it, and then obviously we'll all ask questions. I would like to just say, for the committee's sake, just sort of as a reminder, that when we come looking for our budget, we are not looking into the general fund for a dime. We are still, even though special fund agencies have gone, we still acquire our money through special funding. 85% of that money comes from out-of-state insurance companies that we regulate. We assess them annually for the budget that y'all allow us to have. And nationally, we are ranked somewhere in the middle of those assessments. So if we would have to really start over assessing people for it to even be on their radar screen. And I say that obviously because, you know, when we ask for any increase at all, we're asking to be able to increase the assessment on these companies. Now, just in full disclosure, about 15% of the companies that we oversee, or the entities that we oversee, are self-insured entities in Mississippi. And so obviously they also would then be assessed, but kind of in the same realm. The assessment that we make is somewhere in that range. So I mean, that mid-range. I would say that the one thing that we have done, I think you'll see it reflected, is I think from a regulatory standpoint, from as adjudicators and as administrators, we have probably worked together hand in hand as well as any group I think that has been over there. We were all appointed similarly, and we worked together and have known each other. So I believe that we do. I hope that's recognized from the outside. We have streamlined the process. We have turned some full-time positions into contract positions that has saved us money and saved, I guess, the people that we assess money ultimately. So that we will be anxious to answer any questions that the committee has. I'm gonna recognize, if y'all don't mind, Ray Minor. He has been the executive director since Washington was president of the United States. And he knows this inside and outside. He will share with you this year's proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, on the first line, the commission is requesting an increase of $358,000 in the category of salary, wages, and fringe benefits. This increase would fund the realignment that's recommended by State Personnel Board for the commissioners, the administrative law judges, and the executive director. We asked for this, we've asked this for the last couple of years. We have not been granted the authority to realign our positions or whatever. And the commissioners got a 5% raise in 2022, and that's the last raise they had in the last 5 or 6 years. And the judges got 3% in 22.
What's the last raise we had in 11 years?
11 years. And the judges and myself got a raise 3% in June of 22 and 2% in October of 22. So we are requesting $358,264 in salaries to fund that realignment recommendation by the State Personnel Board. And the second thing, we are having a problem with our court reporters position. We got 4 authorized court reporters positions. Currently, we got 1 filled, 3 vacant. Just can't fill them. The court reporters are not out there. So we are in the process. We contract with outside court reporters at this point. And what they're doing is we got money in salaries, but we don't have money in contractual services to fund those contract reporters. And so what I'm requesting today is to transfer $100,000 from salaries, wages, and fringe benefits to contractual service for that purpose. And more or less, that's our request in a nutshell. Those 2 items, the increase for the realignment recommendation, the transfer of $100,000 from salaries to contractual service to fund those contract co-reporters.
Okay? And 24, right, 24 and 25.
About the status of your building. We had big issues with that this time
I
last.
think we're working on it finally. It's a slow process. You know, we've recognized, you and I've had this conversation many times, and I've been over there. Now I'm starting my 8th year. Senator Harkins has been there for 4 more than that, I guess. And of course, Commissioner Henry now for almost 6. And we have just watched it deteriorate while we could not do anything about it. One thing we did last year was ask and were granted a move to put us under DFA. So we're now a DFA building. We were nobody's building but ours, and we couldn't come up with we couldn't seem to secure the funds to fix it. It's horrid. I mean, it's the HVAC system is basically gone because of the lack of maintenance, the accumulation of water in the ceiling has dripped through most of the ceiling and almost all of the insulation, and now down to the 2nd floor. So we're in the midst of having to do some really crazy updates, remodeling, tear it down, start over, but DFA's, they've been over and they're working with us on it. And hopefully we'll start that path. Every time we start talking about it, it's further down, but eventually I think we'll have to move out of the building somewhere.
Did the wheels of government move that slowly? What was the appropriation we had last year?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we gave ARPA money for the HVAC system, I think.
Correct. And they've got it.
That should be.
They're
either
saying
being fixed or has.
Well,
been
no.
fixed.
They're giving us a time frame of they will start ordering equipment sometime in April. That will take some months.
But you got money for it.
The money's there.
Okay.
So-
I mean, it's
so
just the wheels of construction move pretty
Well,
darn slowly these days.
as
but
you
You're in
know-
line with every other state agency right now.
As you
I hate
know,
to
I
say it
know.
that way,
So
but you know it.
I've sat on both sides of it. I do know, and it seems to move slower in government than it does elsewhere, but it certainly does move slow.
Okay.
I need a mic.
It's my understanding that while you did designate ARPA money for the commission to receive a new roof and the new HVAC system, that it maybe went into a lump sum with DFA. And so we are just on a list of many things, but it'll be like in January, we had a massive flood in the building. It was raining from the ceiling and went down through the 2nd floor and the 1st floor. And so, but DFA, Jason Thomas, was really helpful. And so they've got us on track for that. They've got us on track to fix the fire alarm system which will in turn also fix the security system, because otherwise our building is open access without the lock on the back of the building. They're working on that currently, and then they believe that they'll start ordering. What months did they tell you? Tell
Well,
us?
they gave us the list. They would start ordering some of the HVAC equipment in April. They left the boiler off of that list. So we were going to order a new HVAC system minus a boiler. And I think we have managed to get that on the list now, but that would have been, if we hadn't checked that, we would have ended up getting everything in without the boiler, and you can't run a HVAC system that large without heat. So it's a great frustration, Mr. Chairman, because almost every office in that building has a box fan and a space heater. Almost every office in the building has a box fan and a space heater so that we can stir the air when it's hot and try to warm their feet when it's cold. So it is, and again, we've got the ARPA money coming there, but so many things that we could do if we would ever get to that point where we look at this national assessment and say, look, y'all can do this, go assess it. And we've got a lot of room to move, I think, before we get even questioned. By those people who we're assessing.
Good news is I think we've made more traction in January than we have ever. So I think that things are really starting to pick up. But they did tell us that when they start the roof construction, that it's going to take 6 to 8 months, and that we may possibly have to move out of the building.
No, we'll have to move out of the building.
Well, we will.
Because they've got to shut the power off to redo the HVAC system.
Well, this is probably more than y'all ever want to know, but they told us it'd probably be 6 months before they could get all the material. That would put it toward the end of the year. then they think it's going to take 4 to 6 months to replace the original heating and cooling system from a building that was built 40 years ago and the original roof from a building that was built 40 years ago. So then we will be out of the building, where I don't know, but we'll be out of the building for several months after that.
Sure hope.
Thank you for
no-
asking.
No mold in the building from a roof leak. And I'll
Well,
say
there's
this,
cer-
we've certainly
there's
got our
certainly
money's worth
mildew.
on the roof and the HVAC getting 40 years out of it. And I wish we'd planned ahead, but I remember getting money for the account. I'm disappointed it's taking this long.
They did send in Serve Pro. It's either Service Matches or Serve Pro. Jason Thomas sent them in and they did an evaluation for mold, but he has, I'm not aware of the results yet.
Well, I can say one thing. We had a storm in June of last year, and it knocked out the whole security system for the building, mag locks, the whole thing. We have no card readers to go in and out the building. Then, and right now the building's wide open. It's wide open. Anybody can walk in.
I was hesitant to say.
Members of the committee, any questions? Senator Pope, let's go ahead. Senator Wiggins, you were first.
Thank you. You piqued my interest about the court reporters because I've been hearing we have a complete shortage in the state is what I'm being told. And so my question, did y'all have permanent court reporters, or did you do contract, or, and if they were permanent and they're not there, what were you hearing? What's going on?
Well, when I started the commission, we had 8 permanent court reporters, and we're let down to 4 permanent positions. And we got permanent pen now, but we got 1 field pen at this point.
Where are they going, I guess, is my question, or what?
Other state agencies, because something in the law, and somebody else may explain it better than me, but caps our court reporters. So we lose court reporters from workers' comp to go to other state courts that can pay almost $20,000 more at one time.
Yeah, state courts.
Yes, sir, the county.
Like circuit and
Okay,
chancery. So we lose them to them. And then, as you have intimated, when we open up the position, we will get, on one time we opened it up and we got about 15 applications, none of whom were court reporters. None of them were court reporters. So they didn't even understand what they were applying. And so that's been, so in order to solve that, we have 1 court reporter on staff that's she kind of oversees what's going on. And then we've assigned one of the senior attorneys to help manage that, and we just contract, and it's saving money right now. It may, if we can get permission from the Supreme Court, which is where we have to get permission, we may stay with this. If it's working and it's saving money and it's efficient, there are a few things we're trying to work out, but that's where we are now. We have one in staff and the rest are contract.
That's good information. The judges and all have mentioned it to us on the judiciary, and we've even had conversations with the lieutenant governor, like, do we need a court reporter school? I don't understand it all yet, but there's no court reporter schools in the state. And then ones are like leaving or they're retiring and we're not filling it. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, Senator, I know Program Community College has one now.
Right.
And they're turning them out. I think the biggest issue is the biggest employer of court reporters is government.
Right.
And the salaries are not competitive. And just like so many other things, they can go to other states, especially if they live on the border anywhere, or in our case, go to county agencies where they can get some county money on top of the salary. So I think that I'd look at that. I'd look at what are we paying them, because we've got to have them. I mean, we even looked into trying to figure out some way to do a voice to record, voice to print recording system. And they're so, the best that are out there are not good enough in a courtroom. You can do it on your cell phone, as you know, right here. But when you start getting into a courtroom with different people talking, it throws out, it can't correct itself. So I think it's salary. I think we've got to figure out what court reporters have to have.
Well, yeah, I've been in court where the courts they didn't have court because they couldn't get the court reporters. They were out or something. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just bringing it to the committee's attention. I'm sorry the Chairman Hobson left, but I think this is an issue that's coming down the pipe. So we'll see but I certainly understand why they're asking for that, because apparently it's going on.
So one of the ways that the Supreme Court very graciously helped us is because official court reporters are not allowed to freelance.
Yeah, and that's been part, from what I've been told, that's part of the issue.
Yeah.
They can't freelance. And so I don't know, they either leave or,
Well, they can make so much more money by doing contract work.
right.
by
So they just go contract.
freelancing. And so, but what the Supreme Court did do is they gave a special exception to the Workers' Comp Commission
Okay.
to allow official court reporters to freelance for the commission. And so that has been our saving grace because the Supreme Court so generously gave an exception specifically only to the commission. And so that's how we've been able to get by.
This may not be the question for you, but why does the Supreme Court say that they can't freelance?
Well, we don't know the answer to that. We told them we had an emergency, which happens to be correct. And so they granted us an exemption. That's
Well,
how they
conveniently,
explained
Mr.
it.
Chairman, I have their budget next week or tomorrow, so we'll find that out from them.
And Senator, it may be that, if they're state employees, then they probably couldn't be stopped from freelancing on weekends. It's just there's no court sessions on weekends. I mean, by the way I understand the law, state employee, you can obviously not go work somewhere else on state time. So they'd have to take vacation time or whatever. But I'd look at that. I think that's going to be accurate.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your beginning statement, you talked about increasing your funds, and you've done it through increased charges to 85 insurance companies?
No, sir, 85% of the money that we get in, all of our funding comes from insurance companies that sell workers' comp. They are assessed. I think it's that way in almost every state, not every state, but almost. So if they do business here, similar to what we did with the wind pool situation after Katrina, if you do business here, then you are subject to paying in if there's a catastrophe. So on an annual basis, we assess everybody that does business, and there's a formula by which they are assessed. It's a percentage of their business. And then that includes self-insureds that are in the state. So I just wanted to clarify that, but most of that money is from out of state. So,
but out of state.
Yes, sir.
Means that John Polk's business may have paid.
I'm
an
not
insurance company.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question that if
So it's not really out of state money.
Okay, I'm not going to argue that, Senator, and I think that's accurate. But I am saying that we only had one in-state bank that we even had any assessment on, and that was AmFed, and they have now been purchased again, so they are now owned by an out-of-state buyer. So I guess I say that I use the word out of state to draw a circle around the fact that it's not general fund money. It's not money it's people who are basically paying to do business in the state. And you're right it's
costing Mississippi business.
Well, to write business, they're doing business in the state, writing business in the state.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thanks for that clarification.
And keep in mind, the commission offers a waiver where carriers, so if you use, for example, Liberty Mutual, the commission offers a waiver where they don't have to have a office in the state, and their fee is a one-time fee of $100. So keep in mind that they're not leasing space in Mississippi. They're not paying taxes in Mississippi where they had an office operating in Mississippi. So all of their assessments are done based on a percentage of what they've spent annually in indemnity and workers' comp and then medical. So there is a benefit to, they're not required to have an office here and they have a waiver. So that is, I would say, a pretty good savings to a lot of carriers. But you are correct. You are paying your premium, but it goes to fund the agency.
Turner Ford.
Now, I would suspect yours is a pretty good premium. That's probably a pretty good number.
That you have heard sit around the coffee pot. How did that happen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I understand that you all are projecting, you said 6 to 8 months before construction can begin, and you all will have to, the building will have to be closed.
Yes, ma'am. And keep in mind, just for clarification, we're projecting that today. 2 years ago, we were projecting 6 to 8 months. So it's a moving target, but right now they're saying 6 to 8 months.
And so my question is, to the extent that you all would have to relocate for the agency to continue to function, where are those costs anticipated? Where would they Have they been covered anywhere? What is the plan?
Well, I'll let everybody react, but I think DFA would tell us where we were going. They would supply the place.
Right.
We probably could work a few more people remote than we are now. I wouldn't want to do that permanently, but there are some short term, we could probably do that. But I think DFA will tell us, somebody will tell us where to go and we will go there, I think is what will happen.
Right, that's correct.
And is it anticipated, once construction begins, how long you all would be displaced?
I'm scared to even think about it because it could be 18 months, I think. I mean, it could be if they do the roof, for a while and then they do the HVAC for a while, they've got to do all the insulation, all the ceiling tile, all the flooring. Somebody asked, I think you mentioned black mold, mentioned mold. You didn't mention black mold. We have not really seen hairy mold or black mold, but there's mildew. You can rub the carpet in places and get mildew. So it will be a major undertaking and we could be out for a while.
Okay, anybody else? No, we got our largest agency coming up, Department of Revenue.
And we would like to, for you just to give us a rounding error on DOR, whatever their rounding error is, we could use that for our budget.
We dominate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for all being here
Gentlemen.
so much.
I didn't see you over there.
I know, I came in while you were. Promise, I forgot.
Okay,
I'm
you
good,
there?
I'm good, just hang it down.
Okay. Let's try it. We went once, yeah.
Stretch for 2 minutes.
So y'all got a 10-minute break.
I know, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly, well, they also were here.
I was trying to say where. I saw her. Jane and I was trying to scope it out. Okay, well. I'm gonna touch Frank to leave, so wherever he sits, I'm gonna position myself.
Way out there. He's as bad as Liz. Yeah, he works with us. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. We had a preliminary hearing in the month of December with this agency, but Chris, the committee has changed and all weren't present. So it's not like we're picking up from where we discussed in December. But you can certainly dance around some of the issues because we had a real good meeting at that time. Maybe not go into quite as much detail. And one of our senators who's not on the committee has a specific question he wants to ask about license plates. And we do want an update, please, on the potential construction of the ABC warehouse. Everybody's interested in that. But we've done this before, so just take charge. And whenever anybody wants to speak, please turn your microphone on because we're broadcasting this on YouTube. People will be able to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. We did want to be as brief as you all wanted to be, but we're perfectly willing to stay here as long as you want to. We gave you a copy of our annual report. We emailed that to all legislators a couple of weeks ago, I believe. It's available on our website as well. I'm not going to go through it. It really details all the different things that we do, a lot of which I talked about when we met back in December. I didn't talk about all of it, but we just do all kinds of things. And so we could spend a couple hours probably going through that, which I'm not going to bore you with the details. We did want to start out, Kelly Gray Rhodes is one of our two associate commissioners. She wanted to talk a little bit about the tag fund, the license tag fund. We think that's kind of a pressing issue that we wanted to make sure that we put it in front of you all. And then Frank Purrier, who's our Director of Administrative Services, we're going to take you kind of quickly through our budget request. And depending on the questions, we can then address the warehouse or whatever else you all want to address, if that's okay with the committee. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So we wanted to bring before you this matter regarding our license tags and the license tag fund. We are requesting a deficit appropriation for fiscal year 24. As you all know, the popularity of the blackout plates has been substantial. They are very, very popular. You have seen them out on the roads. I brought examples for you so you can see kind of what they look like if you haven't seen them up close. So this is our standard blackout plate. As you can see, it has raised lettering and it's embossed. And this is our vanity plate, the blackout vanity, and it's flat. It's just a digital printed image. So we realized that when we budgeted for the fiscal year 24 year, we understood it was a reissue year, but because the blackout plate was so popular, it has pretty much sold out everywhere. I mean, everybody is relinquishing or surrendering their specialty tags, and they're actually selecting the blackout plates. And so for January, just to give you some ideas of how substantial of a change it is, the 5% of our total January sales are attributed to the blackout standard plate. So to date, for fiscal year 23, we sold 107,000 of the blackout tags that were vanity plates. And for fiscal year 24, to date, we've sold 90,000 of those plates. So our total tags to date, and this is January data, is 198,000 blackout plates sold. I know there was a question previously about transfers, and for fiscal year 23, we transferred 2.9 million into the First Responders Death Benefits Fund. And in fiscal year 24 to date, for the first half of the fiscal year, we've already sent 3.1 million to that fund in contrast to fiscal year 23. So if you can imagine, that's about 6 million in transfers to date, and we still have another half of our fiscal year to go. The cost for this this blackout standard plate is actually $5.07 compared to the cost of the vanity plate. So the vanity plate is $4.40, which is the cost for all of our vanity plates. But the cost for the blackout standard plate is higher because of the embossing and because of the digital printing. It actually goes through 2 processes as opposed to our regular plates. So there's an additional cost for that. Now that cost is a potential for increase or decrease just depending on postage. So we've had an increase of postage from $5.50 to about $5.75. That's estimated to cost us an additional $21,000 in postage alone for the rest of the 6 months. There's also an increase for aluminum. We have an aluminum adjustment every quarter. It went up this quarter. And so we estimate it could go down, but all of that attributes to the cost of this plate. So these are just some of the reasons why, just due to the popularity, we couldn't foresee that it would be this popular. We're asking for a deficit appropriation. In addition to that, potentially, we are reviewing all of the sales from January to March. We may potentially need an additional appropriation added to our current appropriation for fiscal year 25. We asked for 6 million, just depending on what those sales look like. We may need an additional appropriation. We just don't know that amount yet because of the estimation of the sales. We just don't know what it's going to do.
But I remember from our meeting in December that you lose about $2 a plate. Is that right?
So $2 of the standard plate goes to the license tax fund, but it's after the fact. So basically it goes back to the general fund and not to that license tax fund at the end. So we really need spending authority right now. That money is there, so we're requesting 2.7 million. The money is there, we just need the additional spending authority to spend it.
What we talked about doing is taking the fee and diverting part of the money that went to the charity to the cost of the fund. Instead of.
You could
Not as good.
do that. I think the fund has enough money in it if you don't want to change the way the fees are going. And so the fund has, we just need spending authority to
Spending
spend the
authority.
money out of the fund.
Okay.
I think long-term solution, you may want to consider, of course, you've got to divert it away from something, or you've got to increase the fees, which I don't know that you all would want to increase the fees, but so that $38 or so that goes to the law enforcement officers and firefighters benefit, you might have to reduce that a little bit.
That's what I thought we would do, but you're at how many million? Spending authority for how much?
2.7 million.
Thank you.
Additional, yeah. And so the current budget year, which will end June the 30th, we're asking for 2.7 additional. And next year's request we put in back in July, and we're still evaluating that because I think we need a couple months of data to see how popular these blackout tags are going to be. It could be that we decide we can make it based on what we requested, but there is a chance we would increase that request. It's spending authority again, but we don't want to request a lot that we don't need. And really what we do is we buy tags with that. We don't do other things. We buy tags and the little stamp that goes up in the label that goes up in the right corner. So we're not paying salaries and things. And so if we don't spend it, it then just goes back to the general fund. So y'all set that up a couple years ago. We appreciate that. So we can spend it, and then whatever we don't spend goes to the general fund.
While we're on that subject, I'd like Senator McCon to ask his question because that relates to that.
As to the tags, there's been, sorry, Senator. As to the tags, there's been some questions, and I'm a personal recipient of one of the nice little letters in the mail from another state regarding a tag with a number that is similar to mine on a specialty tag. What's going on? I mean, do we need to update some systems? Or are we not being able, because I know they're getting the information from our offices, but it's pegging, like mine in particular is pegging it's a Harris County toll road in Texas, and the individual driving the vehicle's got we were able to determine it's like a retired Marine tag with a number 31. Well, I'm getting all the bills.
Yeah.
And every time I call and tell them it's not me, they say they're going to take it off. And then all of a sudden he gets another violation, and I get another letter in the mail, and then it's got all the old stuff on it. So we need to maybe look and see what we need to do to differentiate those tags and the ability for the readers to actually see what's going on, or the photos. But I mean, I'd hate to go to Harris County and get a ticket now, just randomly, because I hadn't been there at all in my life that I know of. So just a question there. And I believe, if I remember correctly, there was another senator that asked the same question because he had a client that got the same problem. Just on our vanity plates, maybe we need to look at something on that. So, Mr. Commissioner, you may be able to speak to that. That's the only reason I'm here today.
Yeah. And so that happens also with different states. Sometimes you'll be running a number that's similar to a different state. And so the companies that are processing those, I think there is a chance that there's a lot of human error in those. And so I don't know that they look at every one of them, but the license tag readers, I believe, read them correctly most of the time. But a lot of times, I don't know what kind of tag you have. A lot of times there's an indicator letters on there that are not like the other letters. And so yours should be a little different. I'm sorry. Do those have indicator letters on them? Okay. And so we've seen that some where there's not indicator letters, but that's something certainly it's been raised with us more than once now, and it's something we'll work on.
I appreciate that.
And if you continue to get those, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of those with me, it helps us. It helps us. Sometimes there's a good reason, and sometimes there's not a good reason.
I'd just like to add, my tag is pegging to a motorcycle in Florida. I have no idea what that's about.
Yeah. Yeah. And you all passed a bill several years ago now to outlaw tickets in the mail for traffic signal type violations. And I think probably one of the wise things about that is you all have limited the number of errors that get made by these companies that are doing this to make money and have a little bit less incentive to get things right because they're doing so many. And so as y'all consider policy issues and considerations about people wanting to do things electronically, because the computer can tell you, AI, AI is the same way. You let the computers tell you what to do. You introduce just a whole nother piece of human error. When I go look at that picture of your tag, I can tell that it's not a retired Marine tag. They got a clear picture of it. I guarantee it. You can tell it's not a retired Marine tag. And so if somebody lays eyes on it, they will absolutely know they've got the wrong person. The thing is, they're not even calling a person. They're calling a car and a tag, and a computer's doing it. It's not a person usually processing. If you ever get a hold of a person, you can usually get it fixed, but the hassle of doing that is awful. And so our challenge, we do have some areas where we can improve because we have some tags that truly are duplicate numbers, but we have a lot of them that are not duplicate numbers. And you can tell when you look at the tag, yours might be an exception to that. When you look at the tag, you can tell by the letters that are on the tag, it's not the right tag. And so as policymakers, y'all may need to consider some things you can do as a state to keep these companies from using that information to send tickets to our residents who are never, some of them are never going over there. It's an issue. But thank you for raising it with us. And please do send it to me if it happens. I'd love to see what you've gotten so far, just so we can, if nothing else, we can make contact with the companies and see if there's something we can do to help them stop making the mistakes. There's plenty we can always do, but maybe there's something we can do to help them, whatever mistakes they're making.
Okay. Are you done?
All right. So if you all don't mind, we'll turn it over to Frank, and he's going to do a quick run through of the budget request.
Okay. Thank y'all for allowing us to visit with you today about our budget request. Our initial budget request that we submitted back in July showed a $1.1 million increase over our FY24 budget. So it was almost just a flat request compared to FY24. We have now dropped in the base level funding guidelines under the Joint Legislative Budget Committee that we received last week. And as of right now, we're asking for an additional $3.6 million above that base level funding to get us back to our FY25 budget request. The majority of that $3.6 million that we're asking to be restored for our budget request relates to salary, which is $2.5 million. And we have really this fiscal year worked on recruiting very hard because we have so many vacancies, especially with auditors. And of course, auditors are the lifeblood of the agency because that's what we do. So is collect taxes and administer the tax laws. So we started this fiscal year with 524 filled positions. As of right now, we have 548 filled positions. So we've added 24 filled positions, and that's even better than it sounds because we've had people leave also. But so we have net added 24 positions. And our budget for FY25 is based on 573 filled positions. So as you can see, we've got, another 25 positions that we'd like to fill this year to be up to our goal of 573, which is what our FY25 budget is based on. And we, like I said, we are really recruiting hard. We are having, I think we've got 19 career fairs scheduled or speaking engagements scheduled between now and the end of the year. And, and then internally we're, pushing very hard on recruiting, of course, State Personnel Board website, LinkedIn, things of that nature to try to attract people to the Department of Revenue. So if we get to that 573 filled positions by the end of the year, we will need our, 45.7 that we have requested. We continue to look, of course, at auditor salaries and do, salary progressions on those, to stay with the market. It seems to be a shortage of accountants right now. And so we're, of course, competing with other state agencies and with the private sector and public accounting firms. So we feel like it's crucial for us to get that funding restored for the salaries. We are also asking for funding of $1.1 billion to be restored to get us back to our budget request on contractual services. Our two largest items on our contractual services are our contract with Fast Enterprises, which develops and manages our two tax system, our MARS, which is our tax system, and Marvin, which is our motor vehicle system. And then, of course, the second largest item that we have, which is new in FY24, is the contract we have with the third-party operator to operate the ABC warehouse. And so, in order to continue to fully fund both of those contracts, we're requesting that 1.3 or 1.1 billion be restored in our budget request. And as far as a breakdown of the funding, where we're asking that to come from, we are asking for the salary amount of 2.5 million to come from the general fund, 500,000 in additional special funds, in which we anticipate we will have the cash available in the special funds. So we just need additional authority there. And then we are asking, which I realize this doesn't really get considered until kind of the end of the session, for 615,000 in capital expense funds. Our agency is very, technology driven and human capital driven. And so it's very important that we invest money in our IT systems. We have some data storage for, at our Clinton office, IT equipment that is life's in. And so we want to make sure we have the money to upgrade that equipment so we can maintain proper security. And we also have some firewall replacement and some servers that also need to be replaced. And, that's something that we feel like is very crucial to maintain not only the security of our system, to make sure our systems are operating properly and are up all the time also. So does anybody have any questions?
Are all the fees for the ABC warehouse listed in that contractual services, 1.1 million?
They are
contractual, third-party operator?
The third-party operator, right. Those are all listed in that
all
contractual system, contractual services, right.
They're all independent. They're independent from the state. They're not employees. None of.
So yeah, the contractors, they're a third-party operator, and I don't recall how many employees they have at the warehouse. It's just over 100 employees, and they have some management staff, I think, that are included in that number. They're all non-state service employees as of June the 19th of 2023. And so they've been in place a little over 6 months now. And the same thing with FAST. FAST has a number of people who work here in Mississippi, who have their offices here in Mississippi, but they're an independent company as well. But they've been the computer solution for the Department of Revenue for 15 years. Is it 15 yet? It's been about 15 years. And what I can tell you about that software is the department spent a lot of time developing that software, making sure it works. And it's really allowed us to be a lot more efficient than we were before we had the software. It's very costly to get it, and it's taken a long time to get it where it is, but it's a very important contract to the state. And it's what we used to collect almost $11 billion last year. And so it's pretty important. All the counties tie into the Marvin side of it. They tie into the Mars side as well, but they use the Marvin side of it every single day. All 82 counties are connected into our system every day. So the contractual services on that part are very important also. As far as an update on the warehouse, in the 2022 session, you all passed a bill that went into effect July 1st, 2022, that authorized us to do two things. It authorized us to contract with the operator. And then after we contracted with an operator, it directed us to consult with the operator and then work with the Department of Finance and Administration to construct an ABC warehouse. And so after y'all passed the bill, we did some things to get a consultant in place to help us write an RFP so that we could put that out for bid for an operator to come in. We had those bids in December of 2022. We had those in and graded and selected the operator. The operator we selected was the lowest cost. We didn't do it based on cost. It was an RFP. So we graded the proposals. They happened to also be the lowest cost. And that was a big part of the proposal. They're an experienced operator. They did the same thing in Iowa. They have a warehouse in North Mississippi. They don't do alcohol out of that warehouse, but they're all over the nation. They're pretty decent sized company. I think we went to PPRB and had the contract approved in March of 2023. And by June of 2023, they were in place. And really July and August, we started on this before, but July and August, we really started consulting with them on construction of a warehouse. The Department of Finance and Administration has hired a consultant to help us write an RFP that we hope that we'll be able to put out in the next 2 months. We hope it will be early this year that we'll put out an RFP. Once that RFP is back, it will be graded and a construction design build probably process will happen where there will be construction of a warehouse. We don't have an exact number. The last 2 years, we've told you all that we thought we would be about $95 million to build and construct a warehouse. You all have given us $55 million of borrowing bond. There's a bond that you all set up for us to be able to borrow and build. That will construct a warehouse, but it won't construct and equip a warehouse. And so what we've learned about the equipment is it's very costly, and you don't want to finish on a final design of a warehouse until you know what's going to go in it. You all know how important it is, make sure the stuff you buy fits in the warehouse and works with the warehouse. And so that's what the consultant is helping the Department of Finance Administration and us do in consultation with the operator. You know, what kind of material handling equipment do we want in the warehouse? How automated will it be? You know, what's the clear ceiling height? What's the size? All of that stuff is really being designed right now so that we can write all that into the RFP. And then hopefully within, a couple of months, we'll have that written and responded to. We're anticipating it will still be within that $95 million range. We don't have a final number yet. We're waiting on the operator to get back with us and make some final decisions on some of the material handling equipment, but we're still expecting it to be in that $95 million range.
What's the size you want to build?
We have not decided on the size. We're still working with the consultant on that. I hate to throw out a number. I've got some ideas of what the range could be, but it kind of depends on what we end up selecting on the material handling equipment. It'll be larger than the one we're in now, which I think we're 211,000 feet now, and it will be larger than that. And we will get you updated figures just as soon as we can, but we do anticipate it'll be in that $95 million range.
Vote. Mr. Wiggins, any questions on anything so far?
So far, or other questions?
So far? On that warehouse, I think we're getting to the point to stop talking about the warehouse. Anybody want to ask anything about that? The new warehouse, Senator Ford? Okay. Yes, sir.
That concludes my presentation. We're perfect. We'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Maybe the idea is that Senator Wiggins will have some on a different issue, though.
They warned me not to give you that annual report. I'm joking. I'm sorry. No, I'm joking. No, sir, they did not. That's who told me that.
I like this, by the way.
Thank you.
Is this your first year doing this?
No, sir.
Oh, sorry. Well, I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't always bring hard copies. We put it on the internet and
First.
it's the first year that we brought a hard copy to you all, but we email it. And so we don't, it's on our website and we print, a handful of them. We just don't print a whole lot of them because most everybody uses computers now.
Sure. Okay, so I have like two questions. I realize you're not the gaming commission.
No, sir.
Okay. But it's a pretty stark chart on page 42. When you look at historically where the revenue's coming from on gaming casinos. And if you look, as the river casinos of y'all has gone consistently down and the Gulf Coast casinos have gone consistently up. Do you, from where you sit, what's going on?
I've not analyzed the difference between the revenues in the river casinos versus the Gulf Coast. I mean, obviously the Gulf Coast, the amount of money that has been invested in the Gulf Coast, whether it be Gulf Coast restoration funds or all the other tranches of money that the coast has access to, and then the population on the coast is not hurting. And so I haven't looked at the population numbers on the coast, but I think the casinos down there have done a really good job of making that a destination for gaming. You've got some really solid casinos that have spent a lot of time marketing to folks who are not in the state of Mississippi to bring some of those folks into the state of Mississippi. And I think its location in relation to New Orleans is a really big deal. Obviously, it doesn't hurt it being far from Mobile and the Florida Panhandle in general. The airlines, I think y'all have done a great job of upgrading the ability to get flights in and out of the coast. You probably know a heck of a lot more about that than I could begin to remember. But so I think it's generally the economic climate on the coast has been booming for years. And of course, they have great leadership here in the Senate as well. But I mean, I think it's the people and the things that y'all have going on the coast, you know, whether it's the employment situation down there. Of course, you like to talk about the education that's available down there, but I do think the coast pulls in a lot of people from out of the state that some of our other areas in the state don't necessarily get. And so I think that's probably what you're seeing is why it's gone up. I can't really tell you why the river casinos have gone down.
Well, I think you hit on that, or I appreciate your insight because I think the chart, that numbers show that. So, okay. And I'm gonna take you into a sticky wicket. Okay. So, and I know what I'm asking for an answer that we don't normally hear. And that is the governor's called for an income tax elimination. Okay. And there's a lot of debate that goes on about that. And I know the normal answer is whatever you, the legislature, want to do. I want to hear what the Department of Revenue says about the income tax elimination. And have you studied that? And have you looked at that so that we can, when that comes, make a decision?
So we participated in the tax study committee that the Senate and the House conducted 2 years ago. Was it 2.5 years ago? We spent a lot of time working on that. We came in and were interrogated by the House and the Senate. I think both sides cross-examined us on that issue. From a policy perspective, there are good arguments for what eliminating an income tax might do. And there are some good examples in other states and maybe the population growth in other states, what you've seen from that. There's always other factors that fuel population growth. And so I think you could go point to like any number of studies that say, hey, elimination of the income tax will do these things. From a mechanical standpoint, if you all decide that you want to eliminate the income tax, we can show you how we would recommend you do that. I don't have any of that information here. If you all wanted to develop a plan to do that, we would certainly help you run numbers and consider what numbers. From a policy perspective, we're going to collect the taxes that you all tell us to collect. If you tell us to continue to collect 4% income tax, we'll continue to collect 4% income tax. If you tell us to stop eliminating the franchise tax, which it's scheduled to go out, and I think it was $270 million last year, it's scheduled to go out in the next 5 or 6 years. We'll continue to phase out the franchise tax. And so we're just going to, and it's the House and the Senate that will have to pass those bills. And then, of course, it had to be signed or allowed to go into law without signature by the governor. So we'll do whatever you all tell us to do.
And that's fair. And to that point, by your own numbers, close to 50% of reported 50% of the population that reported paid 3.65% of the total tax.
A small amount, yes. You're talking about a small number.
Yeah, reported income less 30,000.
So most of the income tax is paid by people making more than that, I believe is what the number is.
Okay. And 86% is paid by those making 50,000.
That's correct. Yes, sir. So if you make $50,000 or above, that most of our income tax collections for tax year 2021 came from that group, 86%.
But 50% of the population is not paying taxes. Is basically where we are.
That may be right. I'd have to look at the numbers to tell you that. I don't know if I can tell you just looking at this chart.
That's I'm sorry, I was looking at page 36.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure I'll go through this and find some more.
One addition, and I ask this question or a variation of this question each time we meet, and my question is worded a little bit differently this time because there has been an initiative and referendum bill that's already passed out of the House. And if the initiative process is reestablished and the voters will be able to push issues to us, I know there's a group that wants to push the sale of wine in grocery stores and direct ship of wine. Does that inhibit your plans for the RFP for the warehouse, knowing that that might could happen?
No, I don't think so. And it, you know, of course, it just always depends. So you could do things that very much change our plans, but putting wine in grocery stores, for example, I don't think will substantially change what we're planning to do right now. The initial, so if the state of Mississippi still warehouses
If
the
they do.
wine, the initial push to get those locations supplied will be a big deal. After that, it will be increased capacity, but you know, the state's gonna be generating more money if y'all do that, I think.
Yes.
And so I think we could probably, we would not change our plans substantially just by that alone.
Unless they decided to ship it directly to the grocery store.
And
That
you,
would
I mean, you
change
could
a lot.
come, you could come up with a scenario that would change.
Remember
our
your
plan.
statistic, 60% of the floor space is taken up by wine, but it produces 40% of the revenue. Is that still close?
Is that close, Chip? Chip says I said that wrong one year, and so
Yeah, you cleared it up there in
Yes.
November, December though, didn't you? Chip, what's the latest? Okay. Okay, anybody else? Thank y'all for bringing the show on the road.
Thank
from
you.
Clinton.
Well, we're available.
Chairman's just
anytime.
popped in. You want to say anything real quick? We've about had a day.
Y'all got it.
We're worn out. Yeah, we wore them out. The 6 agencies wore us out too. No, we got, Chris has all the answers, and so we couldn't stump him. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.